People have different mindsets when they enter new relationships. Some are looking for casual hookups, and others might be looking for meaningful, committed partnerships. But unfortunately, a large majority enter new relationships without having a clue about what it is that they're looking for. Our mindset when we enter new relationships and the way we go about starting those relationships greatly impact their future outcomes. In the last episode, we learned about Ryan and Maria's past relationship history and their impact on the outlook of what a healthy relationship should be. In this episode, we're going to learn about the backdrop of how Maria and Ryan started their relationship with one another, and to what extent that backdrop shaped the future dynamic of their interactions. Let's take a look. So let's talk about your guys' relationship history. And again, that doesn't mean that we have to live every moment, every second, right? Just some kind of how did we start and how did we get here. This is a task the two of you can share. One person can start, the other person can add or subtract. There will be times where I might say, tell me more about this. Sometimes I might say, let's fast forward through that part. So who wants to start?
With her and I?
Yeah.
He was a twit. That's where it started at. She was really cute, for one. And she had a smart mouth, for two. But he was...
My fault, you have poor taste.
Yeah, he was a twit. And she didn't like my clothes. So, it was one of those... I didn't like him, but I wasn't going to step in his path type of deal. But yet...
You did, because you went out of your way to devil him.
No, that's true. He cracked the windshield of my work pickup, please. So, it was just one of those things where at the time when I first met her, I wasn't drinking at all. I didn't drink. And I'm a very outgoing person sometimes. And I'm way outgoing when I start drinking. I don't mind myself a whole lot. But the first time I met her, I was actually fairly laid back. The second time I met her, I was pissy because he had broken my windshield in my work pickup.
Well, yeah, the first time it was just bantering about your shirt and your hat because you were on your way to the bar to play pool.
Yep, and then...
And you weren't around a whole lot, usually, because you were working all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I worked 16, 18 hours a day.
And then the second time was the night that you put Curtis's butt through the window.
Third time.
No, that was the second time. The third time was the time that you took my pocket.
Okay.
You weren't drinking that night either, but you two were...
Yeah.
You two were roughhousing, and Kurt lives in an old trailer house, and Ryan shoved Kurt, supposed to be into the wall, and shoved his ass through the window.
It was very playful at first.
At first.
Yeah.
And then the third time that we were together was one of the nights that he actually drank in Colorado, and he was pretty piled up by the time we started drinking at Kurt's house. And we were all, there's a whole bunch of us, we were sitting around the table playing card games, and he was really flirting with me that night. And the reason that he ended up with my phone number is because he left a bruise on my thigh, goofing off playing, and I took a picture of it when I woke up the next morning, and I had a thumbprint right there. I took a picture of it and sent it to Kurt. I'm like, show Ryan what he did to me. And instead of just sending it on to Ryan, Kurt gave Ryan my number, and then every morning for a long time after that, I'd have random text messages at 4 in the freaking morning when he would get up to go to work.
So, what was your mindset when you met her? Were you casually dating? Were you looking for somebody to settle down with?
I really wasn't looking for anything, honestly.
Okay.
I wasn't looking at all. I mean, I was 14 hours from when I called home. I was by myself. I was,
Up and out of the house at 4:30 in the morning.
yeah, I mean, there was no time for
Relationships.
It was, I wasn't looking, honest to God. It was, oh, hey, there she is. And it was good to have somebody to talk to, an outlet to talk to.
Now, you were aware that she was in a relationship at that time, right?
Yes, at that time I was aware.
Okay. What did you think about that in terms of, there's somebody that I see, that I like, but she's in a relationship?
Be honest.
I wanted to get him away from her. It was the honest truth. That was,
I was one of his rescue projects. He's admitted as much to me repeatedly.
Accurate?
yeah.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that?
We'll revert back to Sheila. Sheila was, she had really poor taste in men. So it was a lot of rescuing her. It was, you don't need to be there, let's go, get away from him. And then the guy that beat on Sheila, that was tough on me. And it was, I could see,
Oh, please, he was not gonna beat on me.
No,
I will knock
not-
his ass down.
not Cody. I could just see he wasn't a good person.
Okay.
He just wasn't, I don't know, he just wasn't very good to her.
So that was part of it, right?
Yeah.
Seeing somebody that need rescuing from your vantage point.
Yeah, and it was, her attitude was the second part of it, was, God, she was so outgoing.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, yes, you were. She was so, that, her laugh and the way she acted, it was just, she was fun to be around.
Okay.
And he was very much so not that. They weren't. And it was just,
Well, it's like Mom said. I quit being myself.
so, it was just one of those,
And you and Kurt were two people that drug me out, so to speak.
yeah. And it was just one of those things of, hey, now she's got my attention, now it's like,
Kurt and I used to brawl.
Okay.
We'd wrestle all the time. And Ryan started getting into the middle of it too. And him and I'd start brawling, and God, that pissed me off.
What did you like about him?
When we first got together, when we first met each other, it was devilment. That's purely what it was between the two of us. Was I'm gonna poke you, And then he turned around and poked me back, and we just bickered, and it was fun. And like at Kurt's wedding, there was a long-standing joke between another one of our friends and I that I was the other girlfriend.
Okay.
And then when Blake got married, I was the first wife. Like, I knew Blake before I even knew he was around, and I knew, Blake and I talked before Cody and I even officially got together, and he was like, he's really shy. Cody's really shy, you're gonna have to make the first move. You know, he's not gonna do it. If you want it, you're gonna have to chase him.
Initiate,
Yeah. And when we were all together for the wedding, Blake and I were goofing off. Like we always do, playing that, you know, oh yeah, by the way, this is the secret relationship that everybody knows about. And I was teasing him too, because I was sitting on the side of his truck, and Blake came up to me, and I slid off the truck and wrapped myself around Blake, like, just to devil him. And it did really good.
Push the right button.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, when did the two of you start begin actually dating?
September 18th, 2009.
That's when I actually asked her to date me.
We were,
And this was as you exited that relationship? Or?
well, Cody and I broke up a long time before that.
Okay.
Cody and I broke up in like June.
Okay.
Ish, after a very awkward phone call at 3:30 in the morning.
I mean, so
Uh-huh.
I was drinking.
Uh-huh. There's this huge concert in Colorado, 4-day outdoor concert. You can camp there. So Cody and I were camping there, and he called me at like 2:30 in the morning. 2:30, 3 in the morning, so it was 4 o'clock his time. And I'm like, Brian, what, it's 3 in the morning. What are you doing? And he goes, well, I'd rather be with you at 3 in the morning. And my speaker was loud enough on my phone that Cody heard me say it. And it was, him and I were kind of on the outs at that point anyway, but I was still trying to kind of make it work. I'm more of a spiritual person and more of a, like, I see the signs, intuitive.
Yeah.
And I had given Cody something fairly early on in our relationship. I got him a necklace. He's a firefighter. I got him a necklace, and I put, you know, everything that I could into it to, this is something to help protect you,
Sure.
keep you safe, to,
Yeah.
you know, for you
Energy,
to come back to me. And him and I were out four-wheeling one day, and he had it hung in his truck. And it's an obsidian stone, like it shouldn't have broke. And it swung forward and smacked the windshield and broke in half. And when it broke, like at that moment when it broke, I'm like, okay, so this isn't gonna work.
Sign?
Yeah. So I live with that, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, it's fine. That's bullshit. That's just my, whatever. And it just got rougher and rougher between the two of us because he just kept getting more and more clingy, and I was living with my little sister and 2 of my guy friends, Darren being one of them, and Cody knew about Darren, but at that point we were best friends. And it just kept getting rougher between the 2 of us, and I don't know exactly when we called it quits, but it was sometime in June. And then the last week of July, he came to Colorado for a week, and him and I had talked all summer.
So how long did the two of you date before the next step in the relationship? And that next step, it could be moving in, it could be engagement, it's different for each couple.
Well, I went to South Dakota August 12th, and I stayed with him for 3 weeks there. And it was just, like, he worked the whole time, and I'd go with him when I could, otherwise I'd hang out at the house. And after that 3 weeks, we were supposed to go back to Colorado, or we ended up going back to Colorado, because I was supposed to fly back to Colorado, and the guy that he was working for that week in July called it back and said, hey, I've got enough work, why don't you guys come down here?
Okay.
So I had planned on moving to South Dakota at that point, and I did for, what, a month
Yeah.
before Kevin called us.
Month and a half, just well.
Yeah, I moved to South Dakota
Okay.
after that, and I was living with him. And then,
So at that point in time, what, within 4 weeks, 6 weeks, the two of you end up moving in together?
after being together, yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
but
After
we'd known each other for about
countless,
a year at that point.
who knows how many hours of phone calls and
Okay. So up to that point in time, prior to moving in together, everything is great? Were there any issues between the two of you? Was there any problems, conflict?
Not really. I mean, him and I talked all the time, and he knew I could talk to him about anything at that point. And I was very open about the fact that I'm not in for another jealous relationship. I'm not going to do that again. If you can't let me be who I am, then leave me alone. We can be friends, and I'll.
Perfect. What was the pitch of this is what you're signing up for? What did you try to explain to him? Like,
Well, the second night that I left work and came up there, him and I got into a wrestling match, I'll say,
okay.
over the relationship, because I was very honest with him. I don't want to jump into another relationship. I don't want to be too serious so soon after getting out of a relationship. I don't want to do that to you. I don't want to take my problems from my past relationship out on you. I really need to work through them. And well, if that's the way you feel about it, then I'll just consider you a little sister. And onto the floor he goes, because we were in a hotel room.
Yeah.
And then him and I argued about, no, really, you can get your ass back up on the bed. You're not sleeping on the floor. If you're sleeping on the floor, I'm leaving. Oh no, you're not leaving. Well, I'm gonna leave if you don't get up off the floor because you have to work tomorrow. And just around and around about the terms of the relationship and what it meant to both of us. And that was my understanding of I don't want to get into a really serious relationship right off the bat, and that was why we ended up being together for 3 months casually.
So again, along the lines that I like you, right?
Mhm.
But I would like to kind of take time to figure out who I am before I commit. So do
Yeah.
not expect exclusivity.
Right.
Okay, is that how you understood it as well?
mm-hmm.
Okay, and were you okay with that?
Yeah. I understood. With me not being ever in a really long-term relationship and her going through what she'd been going through, it's like, okay.
Well, and after that, he went back to South Dakota, and it was 3 weeks before I went to South Dakota, after he bought me a plane ticket.
Okay.
So, there was a break, and I know that 3 weeks doesn't count for
Sure.
a whole lot in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, but
Okay.
there was a break between us spending the night together, even though there was no sexual contact between the two of us,
Okay.
and me deciding, yeah, okay, whatever, let's go. I'm gonna take this opportunity. I'm gonna go on this adventure because
Sure.
I hadn't got to travel at all. That was the first time I'd ever flown commercially.
Okay.
Starting a relationship without clarity is the fastest road toward a predictable heartbreak. Clarity means taking the time to know who you are, what type of partner you're looking for, and what is the best type of relationship that is suited for you. In addition to clarity, the right timing and circumstances for starting a relationship can either lead to a glorious success or catastrophic failure.
So at what point of time the two of you decided to say, okay, we're steady, we're exclusive?
That
Out.
was September.
That was September. It was,
My dad's birthday, it's easy to
Okay.
remember.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
But at that point of time, you already made the move, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So moving in together, did that create any conflict between the two of you? Was there any issues that now you're moving together? Did it change things or?
Not really.
Okay. Okay. Then what happened?
We were together for another year before he asked me to marry him.
Okay. So walk me through the decision to ask her to marry you.
Don't hide the engagement ring under the seat of my pickup.
Yeah. Well, I had made up my mind I was going to ask her,
Okay.
and so I had.
Well, first of all, what led you to that point to say, you know, I like this girl, I want to propose? What got you to make that decision?
There was a lot.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie.
Top 5.
Top one, she never made me feel I've never had anyone make me feel cared for and as special as what she made me feel all the time. The second one was that she trusted me and loved me enough that she was willing to move 4 different times at that time with me and live in a ratty 18-foot camper.
Oh no,
For-
no, the first one was Jake's camper.
Oh, a pop-up camper for 4 months, 3 months.
We lived in a pop-up camper for about a month, and then it got too cold because it was winter time in Colorado, and that was when we got the apartment.
You know. And then she's the first girl I've ever told I love her. Ever. No other woman besides my mom have I told Owen that I love you.
So, the reasons leading up to the proposal is she made you feel special all the time. She, you know, put up with all these rough transitions.
It was her passion for life too on top of it.
Okay. But it would be fair to say that things between the two of you were good enough to say, let's take it to the next level?
Yeah.
Okay. Got married, then what happened?
We moved back to North Dakota in August,
You know?
September. So we stayed in Colorado for another couple months.
Okay.
And like I said, the only reason why we were making ends meet being there was because we were living at my dad's. And there was work and money. The oil field was going crazy in North Dakota, and I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go back to North Dakota. I had hated it when we were up here the first time. And it took me a long time to actually settle. It took me like 3 or 4 years to finally settle in North Dakota and actually want to be there. And we lived in a camper. Again, my grandma helped us buy a camper because there was no places to live. There was no, like, there was years long waiting lists for apartments and rentals. Rental houses were $4,000 and $5,000 a month. So, like, there was no way we could afford to do that. So my grandma helped us buy a camper. And we went to North Dakota literally by the seat of our pants because we didn't have a place to park a camper. It was just as hard to find camper spaces because that's what everybody was doing at the time.
Okay.
And he had 2 job interviews. He had one in kind of central North Dakota and one where we ended up settling. And I picked Watford City because it's only an hour and a half from my friend Bridget, and she was the only person I knew at the time. Instead of being 3 hours away from her, I picked an hour and a half. And we got really lucky. The safety man happened to own a
RV camp.
RV park, a little campground. And he happened to be in the office when Ryan walked in for his interview. And Ryan said something about camper spots, and Steve goes, well, you need a camper spot. And that's how it all fell together.
You're lucky.
Yeah. And so we stayed with Steve until Steve sold the campground, and then we got I had put our names on like so many waiting lists for camper spaces. Just trying to be ahead of it. I'm a planner. I'm the down to the details kind of. We gotta have a plan. We gotta know where we're going. I don't like the
Unpredictability.
the instability of not having an idea of what we're doing. And we got a phone call from another one that was outside of town. It was in a better spot. So then we
Not
were,
up in the ghetto.
well, at that time it wasn't the ghetto.
It was close.
It's a lot worse now. So we moved outside of town, and then not long after that, we traded the little camper in on a fifth wheel, so I could do this without
Yeah.
smashing my hands on the ceiling, which was nice.
Yeah, if you jumped in the little camper tall enough or far enough, you hit your head in the ceiling.
Yeah, him and I and the cat moved to North Dakota in a little 32-foot camper.
Okay. So still roughing it, but again, still kind of.
Yeah.
Way better.
Much more better.
Okay. So, what's the next important event in the relationship?
She went to all this work of, well, for one, it was getting her out of the little camper, because it was a cave.
Okay.
It had bubble wrap on the windows. It had silver tape. It was bad to live in. When it was 30 below, the camper was tough to live in. So we went and traded that camper off for a big camper. And
We lasted another year in that one.
yeah, it was, she took care of, she's really good with money, really good with finances. She basically was, hey, here's my money.
If we just stuck to it when we lived in a little camper on top of the hill, we'd had everything paid off in 10 months. And just been bankrolling ourselves from then on. I just couldn't. We couldn't stick to it because he worked so much. When he actually got time off, it's like, all right, let's go. Let's go do something. Let's go.
Sure.
You know, let's get out of the camper. Let's go have a real shower. Let's go do something. So if we would have stuck to it, we would have been way farther ahead than we are now. But at the same time, it was worth it at the time because we, you know.
The one day a week you get away, or one day every 2 weeks you get away, go do laundry. Piles of laundry. So then it came to the house, and she did all of the footwork. She clearing credit, and making credit numbers look better, and saving money for down payment. And she found the property, she found the housing. It was on her.
Okay.
She was going to start getting crazy in the camper, and I wasn't exactly, yeah, I'll put my hands up. I wasn't exactly sold on it, because we were doing fairly well in the camper, but yet I knew that settling down was probably a good thing. So she went through all of this stress, all of this work to get the house.
Did that cause conflict between the two of you in terms of not being on the same page as far as, you know, house or staying in the camper?
There was conflict between us intermittently over money and settling down and, you know, my happiness, and I was losing my mind living in the camper because when we lived in a cave, the windows had to be closed and covered because otherwise it was too cold.
Okay.
And, you know, in North Dakota you don't get a lot of sun anyway,
Yeah.
and I just,
But also it's not like isolation too, right?
yeah, and I needed, we needed out, we needed to change, we needed to.
What, was there any resentment toward him about having to do the like work for the house and?
At that point, no. It was, this is what I do. I'm not, like you said earlier, I take care of things.
Okay.
That's, and you and I've talked a little bit about it, I'm more of a submissive, dynamic person, and that's how I always thought that I was submitting, you know, take care of everything, take care of the things that I said it once really, really good, how it made sense to me. It was like, if I do all of these things to take care of all these things, it takes the stress off of his shoulders, and that's me taking care of him.
Sure.
And me, just handling things. And to jump way farther forward, you know, within the last year of the conflict between the two of us, it's become a point of resentment. At the time it wasn't, but it's become a point of resentment that, well, you were always so good at all these things, so I just stepped back and let you do them because you were good at it and I sucked at it. Well, you know how I got good at those things is because I didn't have any choice but to do those things. I started adulting for both of us because somebody has to.
Somebody has to do it. Okay.
And I've always been the caretaker anyway. You know, I put myself through school, and
But initially during that stage, that seemed like it was like a fair division of labor, right? He was doing his thing and you were taking care of these things,
yeah,
right? That seemed like it was like, okay, these are the responsibilities that we're assigning to ourselves, this is what we need to do to get through. Would that be fair to say?
Now that I look back on it, no, it wasn't. It wasn't fair at all because she was going to work. She was going to work at a full-time job at Cenex
at 5 in the morning.
at 5 in the morning, and she was fighting through that because,
I was an outsider in the small town world.
you know.
Yeah.
I didn't belong there.
So she fought that, and then it was the drag of coming back to the camper, and it was the drag of fighting finances, and it was a drag of fighting me when it came to
Pushing for a different thing.
the
The details.
yeah, like the house details. It was. I can see why she'd be burned out, and it would have worked on her.
Because this was an additional thing on her plate, and her plate was already as full as yours. It should have been split between the two of you.
Probably fuller than mine.
Yeah.
And all I wanted to do was come home and relax and have her attention and be there.
Okay. Then what happened?
There was a little bit of disagreement over the house. Like, well, we don't have the money to do this. This isn't, you know. And it was me, like, putting my foot down and saying, I really don't care what you think. I need out of the camper.
Okay.
We've got to do something different, otherwise I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah.
You know, I can't do this anymore. I've done the little bitty house and like now I miss it because, you know, I can clean the house end to end, top to bottom, really freaking good when it's only 32 feet long.
It's easier.
38-foot camper with
Central
a
back.
Central back.
It was like, I miss the simplicity, I really do. But I'm also, I'm a ranch kid. So canning, preserving, drying food, putting stuff away, having freezer space. That was the biggest challenge for me. I grew up on the ranch on a very limited budget. My dad made $500 a month when I was little. And that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So we shopped, Sam's Club, Costco, whatever, and being able to have that stockpile is something that's comforting to me, and being able to plan. And like, at that point when you've got a freezer this big, you know, you can't even freeze leftovers, let alone having more than a day or
Like
two
a day or
of
two,
grocery.
yeah.
And that was kind of the driving factor, and we did what we could. You know, I still canned some stuff, but not to the level that I wanted to be at. And it was really hard when you've got a galley kitchen that's this wide, when your canning pot takes up the whole stove, you can't,
Yeah.
you know, you can't do anything but one thing at a time. And I decided, I'm like, we've got the money, we can make this work, it's a good buy, you know, yes, it's gonna be more money a month than we're paying right now. It ended up being, at the time, it was gonna be like $800 more a month than we were paying for camper and lot rent. But the other thing that when I really started pushing for, no, we're getting the hell out of the camper, is the sewer system underground. It got so cold in North Dakota, the frost was at 12 feet. So the entire sewer system froze. We couldn't shower, couldn't do dishes. We couldn't, like, because the camper wouldn't, the water wouldn't drain.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whatever, I'm done with this. We cannot live like this anymore. Done. And I started researching, and we found a house, or I found the property. And we got to order the house the way that we wanted it. Like, that's our house. And there's some tweaks in there that I would have preferred to have, but, you know, compromise on things. And
So what happened when the two of you moved into the house? Did the conflict increase, decrease?
honestly, there was never a lot of like fighting. There was never a lot of pissiness at all between the two of us. He did what he wanted to do, and I just kind of went with it. And kind of the same other way, like, we never really fought.
Okay. Would you agree?
No, we never really. We never really fought, and we never really talked either. Like, the things that we should have been talking about. It's hard to explain. Like,
We're both avoiders.
yeah, it's easier to avoid the conflict, because that's very much so me. If I can walk away from it, or if I can make fun of it, I'm gonna go. Just,
I don't remember what the 4-level things were, but we did that quiz.
Okay. But, so there was an absence of conflict. It's not because everything was 100% perfect. It's just that whenever there was opportunity for addressing conflict, the two of you avoided it.
pretty much.
Disagree with that?
I don't really feel like that it was an avoidance on my part of conflict. I don't think, I guess, I'm a go with the flow kind of person. Like, I'm hard-headed and I want to do, but when it comes down to it, you know, like the finances thing, hey, look, this is the plan, we're gonna do this. But then when I need him to back me up and go, no, you said, don't do that, and like, pull me back from doing something stupid, he'd just be like, okay, whatever, and then I'm like, yeah, you're right, whatever, and then nothing ever gets done.
Okay.
So, was there opportunity for conflicts that we avoided? No, I don't really think so. I think it was just a lack of stay on either one of our parts of, yeah, whatever, you're right, it's fine.
Okay.
But I don't know that that's avoiding.
Okay. But that's at least from your end, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How about on your end?
I avoided conflict. I didn't care for it. I don't care for it. Still don't care for it.
Which means that in retrospect, there might have been some things that you probably should have talked about with her,
Yeah,
and you did not because you don't want to deal with the discomfort of conflict.
pretty much it was trying to keep her happy, and instead of causing problems, she went all this work, and it's like, okay. And we talked about some of the stuff at the house, and it was well, fine, we'll do it that way, well, fine, we'll do it that way, okay, thank you. But it was more, I'm just,
What do you think? What are you saying?
Why didn't you speak up?
But first, are you surprised with him saying this?
Yeah, that's not how I understood. I am headstrong. I admit it. But, you know, I don't ask. It's been my experience in life that it's not worth my effort to ask because what I ask for is always considered to be too much. So when I get something in my head, it's like, yeah, okay, whatever, we're gonna do this. Because I'm the planner, I'm the doer, I'm the one that's in charge of everything, so I understand that you're uncomfortable by this, but look, we can make this work, it'll be fine, we can do this. So it wasn't that I was disregarding his concerns or whatever on my part, it was just, no, we're fine, really, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
When we listened to Ryan and Maria describing how their relationship started and the way it progressed, we learned 5 important points. 1. The mindset in which the relationship started lacked directions and intention. Ryan saw someone to rescue, and Maria saw someone to explore a connection with. 2. The relationship started via poor boundaries and infidelity, which ended up being a recurring theme in the future of the relationship. 3. Ryan and Maria have discovered a very important insight about who they are and what type of relationship is best suited to who they are very early on in the relationship. The first conflict they had was about Maria's readiness for commitment and the desire to explore without being controlled. Despite the clear confliction of what they have both envisioned, they ignored resolving this very important conflict and continued to escalate the commitment of the relationship with one another. 4. Ryan and Maria's relationship developed rapidly. Short courtship, impulsive movement together, and relatively quick proposal. This rapid pace did not allow the opportunity for reflection and the assessment of compatibility. 5. When the honeymoon phase waned, the couple began to experience the various stressors of life as a married couple, but they failed in resolving problems and addressing conflicts as partners. You heard them both describe unbalanced roles, poor communication, conflict avoidance, and unilateral decisions, all of which laid the foundation for an unhealthy future interactions. I want you to keep these important points in mind as you continue to learn more about their story. Until then, be well, be safe, and embrace the possibility for a brighter future.